Hello and welcome to what is Belfast Talk Straight, and a new show, something that we're going to try and bring you once a week throughout the rest of the rest of the summer. It's windy, it's freezing. There are hurricanes, everything in England at the minute, but with England going to the West Indies, IPL about to start, a huge English summer, as well as other cricket going on around the world, including the Women's World Cup. Myself and Jon Norman have decided that we're going to bring you a show every Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday, where we cover three big topics of the week and cover across a few other things as well. Unfortunately, Jon has been last minute has been held up in a meeting in Talksport Towers. So unfortunately, Jon's not going to be here this week. So fingers crossed he'll be here next week. But let's see what we can go at. We've got some big things to talk about. Broad Anderson, William and Saha, rouhani, Pajara, a little bit about the future stars of English cricket. But as always, if you want to get involved, leave a review. Like, subscribe, we'll get back to you. So let's go. Well, Broad Anderson is the topic of conversation at the minute, along with William and Saha against the media. I don't think it was against the media. I just think it was a vocal player who was hurt. And there's a theme with this topic. All relatively similar ages, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. They're all relatively similar ages, all had wonderful careers, and all have potentially come to an end because whether the powers that be think it's time to move on, or it's that they're past the best. But two, I don't think they're past the best, are Broad and Anderson. And we're going to go first. So, Broad Anderson, my initial thoughts when I first heard, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. I couldn't understand how a selection panel could get to this point. And what we've got to put some meat on the bones. We've got an interim coach in Paul Collingwood, right choice. Interim director of cricket, Andrew Strauss. I trust Strauss with my life. He's a solid man. But he's only interim. He's not there for the long term. He's not there beyond the next, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, leading into what will be a difficult county summer in the recruitment process of a head coach or a manager with coaches off that. And James Taylor, who has seemed to be given 1,000,001 jobs and 1,000,001 titles inside the ECB. And doesn't really ever get any sort of accountability or who was what sort of job title he's got, whether it comes to power, because he seems to have worked for under Ed Smith. He's now then being shunted out to this sort of scouting panel, and whether this does come and fall on James Taylor from now on, that there is a head selector or selection panel that comes in, whether he gets the responsibility to go there. So between them, they've decided that Broad and Anderson is not a great idea going to the West Indies. And if England had gone to the Ashes and possibly been a force and done well and potentially won the Ashes, this might not have been a bad idea. But when I look at it, England have won 1 game in 14. It's got nothing to do with the bowling unit. It's got nothing to do with Broad and Anderson's age or their ability. Their ability at this minute in time are still as good as anybody else, if not better, especially Anderson. In the last 3 years, he's been unbelievable. And when you look at the times that Jimmy hasn't been in, Stewart has definitely stepped up to the mark and stepped up to the plate and led that bowling attack. So when you look at 1,177 wickets, 640 for Jimmy, 537 for Stewart. Stewart's only 35, and I say only 35. Jimmy Anderson's 39, and the amount of wickets that Jimmy's took since he was 35 is probably more than anybody else that's played in the team over that 2 or 3 years. So I still think Stewart's got a lot more to offer. Could he go to 39? Well, his body will determine that, but I still think his ability and his hunger and his drive tells you that he still wants to do it. I think this is a strange decision made by people with with no authority to do it, because when you say interim, that means they're just going there, keeping the ship going, moving it down the road. And this decision should have been made by, the next people that come in. I think this leaves it open for the next people to come in and say, right, I don't want the old guard around. I don't want them to sort of muddy the water while I'm trying to sort of make this team play well again. So it gives you a free run and a free hit. So the thought whether they're going to come back or not, I'm really skeptical on that. And if this is the decision, and that is the decision that's made, and they do not come back, then I really struggle with that. I really do. These two greats of our game, arguably two of the greatest cricketers that we've ever produced, should have been. They should get the biggest send off that anybody deserves in world cricket. I was there when McGrath and Warne left the field at Sydney, along with Justin Langer. In the standoff that they got, Ambrose and Walsh, when they left the Oval for the final time. You look at great cricketers around the world, to be left out of a team who has struggled within 1 and 14 games, and just be told from a 5-minute phone call, as Stewart said in his press conference, or his newspaper article. I find that disgusting. I find that really, really hard to take from for somebody who knows the two guys and seen them work and see how hard they've worked for England. I just really struggle to work out why this decision's been made, because the fact, they talk about whether they're trouble in the dressing room. They talk about whether they wield too much authority and power. Yes, they will. Jimmy's played 170 Test matches. Stuart's played over 150. They demand a standard of international cricket. They demand a standard of others who have got to be at the top of their game. And when the people come in and they fall below that, well, then it's a professional dressing room. It's not the dog and duck. They should be telling them that they're not doing their jobs properly. That's what you do when you play international sport. And if the team management, or if people think that that's a problem, then I think there is a problem higher up in that situation. So, look, it's been done now. They've gone, the two of them, and it's about what England can go moving forward. I've got a question here from Arslan. Do you think Broad's column has hurt his cause? I'm moving across because the camera's right in front of it. Apologies. Should he have followed Jimmy's way, not said much? My question is, what would you say to the pair now? I hope they stay as mentors to newer bowlers. It's a good question. It's a really good question. And there's going to be a topic theme here. I thought Stuart Broad's comments were brilliant. I really did. I thought his article was excellent. I thought he was a passionate guy who wants to play for England. Who, we got to remember, we play franchise cricket now. And I'm seeing so many players, even going into Yorkshire for the brief time I've gone. Got some players, and I'm not saying this at Yorkshire, I'm just saying around the country. Got some average players going into these franchises who all of a sudden they're picking up a few quid here, a few quid there. They think they're $1 million, and they think they're the world's greatest players because they're picking up money, because they're hitting sixes and fours. The techniques aren't great. They're not great players. Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson are great players. They are desperate to play the red ball game. If you can play the red ball game, you can play all formats of the game. For me, the only reason that Broad and Anderson haven't played white ball cricket for a long, long time is because they're trying to protect their Test match career. They're dying breed, if anything. So I hope that they're back. I really hope that they get a chance to come back. I think Stuart did what Stuart does best, is speak passionately about the game of cricket, and he's a great speaker, and he's going to be a great broadcaster. And Jimmy, like Jimmy always does, he doesn't say a great deal, but I know for a fact Jimmy will be. If you think Stuart Broad was disappointed in his words in his newspaper column, I think Jimmy will be even further when it comes to that. So this is a lot what Stuart had to say. My eyes aren't that great, so I'll let you read and let you have a look at it. But when I look at what Stuart Broad said, he didn't call anybody out. He didn't slag any of the team off. It was a passionate plea on why he wants to play cricket for England. Why every single morning he gets out of bed and goes and tries to be the best Stuart Broad he possibly can be from a professional point of view, to say, right, I am put my hat in the ring to play cricket for England. few months ago, we did, myself and Neil Manthorpe, we do a show on the Cricket Collective, and we had Luke Fletcher, who plays for Notts, had a fantastic week, and he came on and he talked about Stuart's first 6 or 8 weeks in the county championship for Notts, and the standards that was set at Notts when he left, and what he demanded of his team. Stuart doesn't do that just in the international dressing room. He does it in first-class cricket. He does it in everything he does. That's why these guys are great. You see the top professionals. You know, you look at Cristiano Ronaldo at the minute. He's struggling big time because he's not playing with players who have got the same intensity and the same demand on their game as what he has on his game. And you can see when players like that, they get frustrated. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? No, it's not. It's not for 1 minute is it a bad thing. So Broad and Anderson, I think will come back. I hope they'll come back. I really do hope they come back because they don't nowhere near deserve for their careers to be finished this way. But it's going to be interesting when the new director of cricket, new coach, a new coaching lineup, whether it's red ball, white ball, or one man does the whole thing, whether he thinks it might be time that we just go down a different path. And if he does that, then I think the ECB need to do something to make sure that the two greats of our game get a send-off like they deserve. Would it be wrong to give them a test match each to sort of send them off? I don't think that is the right thing. I think Broad and Anderson will want to be back in that England team on merit. And because of that, I think Lancashire and Notts at the start of this cricket season will get off to a fantastic start because Jimmy and Brodie will be flying, and I hope they do, and I really do hope they do. So I look forward to seeing what happens, and we'll keep you on and abreast of everything that's going on when it comes to that. But that's my thoughts on Broad and Anderson. Right, next one, Widerman Saha and the media. Now the next two topics will not be as long as what Stuart's is and Jimmy's is because the passion I've got for them two guys and what I think went wrong. But there is a theme here. Widerman Saha, he's 37-year-old. I can understand what's happened when they're leaving him out. You've got Rishabh Pant. He's a superstar in his own right. You've got other wicketkeepers that potentially could step up. I think Widerman Saha has been an excellent number two to Mahendra Singh Dhoni and to Rishabh Pant when he come in the side. He got a brilliant 61 in Kanpur when he was injured against New Zealand. Just shows you the sort of character of the guy. And then he gets into a conversation with the coach in Rel Dravid, and I think there's a few other people had piped up and and got involved in expression there. I think their gratitude towards Saha as a player and the career that he's had. I think Sarah Ganguly sent him a text message, but then the conversation went even further when Saha was asked about what hit their conversation and how he felt. Like Stuart Broad, he put his cards on the table, and I looked at the press conference between Pat Cummins after the Justin Langer saga, and I thought again Pat Cummins was excellent in what he said and how he said it. This is an opinion of a leader. This is an opinion of a man. This is an opinion of a career who is passionate about what he stands up for. And Saha did that. He told the truth to the media. He had the conversation. Said he wasn't happy, but respects the decision that's been made, and he would like to move on. And I think the conversations I saw, and the few documents that I've seen, and obviously here's the Twitter stuff that in the conversations and the messages that were going. He's kept his counsel for a little bit, but he also told the truth. And you can't blame somebody for telling the truth. If somebody's passionate about playing for their country, and it's stopped and it's ended, it hurts. Trust me, I know, I've been there. It hurts when you get left out of a team. It hurts when you feel as though you're not required anymore. And like Stuart Broad, like when Pat Cummins talked about the team and the way they thought about what's happening with Justin Langer, Widerman Saha talked about his career, how he felt as though he still had a bit more to give. Unfortunately, India were honest with him, and Rahul Dravid was honest with him and said it was moving. They were looking to move on in a different direction. Unfortunately, when you get in situations where there's a lot of people around, selection panels and things like that, unfortunately, you can get mixed messages when one guy wants to tell you something that you want to hear, but somebody that's at the top, i.e. Rahul Dravid's, told you something that you didn't want to hear. And you do not want to hear that because you don't want your career to be finished. So we got a question here. Adi, what do you think about how Woodham Shah should react after all the consequences? I think that's up to Saha himself. I read the article I read was his wife wasn't very well, or hadn't been very well in the past couple of years. He's got 2 young children. That's why he hasn't played Ranji Trophy. If he wants to continue playing, he's still good enough. It's just I don't think I think when you read what Rahul Dravid had said to him, and this is what Woodham Shah said, it's not really on fitness or performance. It's more age. We're going to have, because he's not number one, we're going to try and blood somebody else, which is common sense, really. We've got Rishabh Pant, who is number one. If we've got a 37-year-old who's a number 2, just there all the time and not playing, not really ever playing, then a 21, 22-year-old. And people will say, what's the difference between Broad and Anderson? Broad and Anderson are number 1s in my eyes. Still are. If I'm picking a team for the West Indies and you're asking me what the team is, I'd pick Broad and Anderson every single time. Every single time with Mark Wood. It'll be the classic combination for me. Pace, height, and skill level of Jimmy. Saha's different. He's not number 1. He's number 2. So I can understand what Rahul Dravid said to him. He's just said, look, it's age. It's nothing to do with how you're performing. So from that point of view, it's whether Saha wants to go out and continue playing in Ranji Trophy and wants to try and sort of continue trying to fight IPL, and he will still have a fantastic couple of years to sort of end his career, or he just decides, enough's enough and I'm moving on. But I think the ball is now in Woodham Saha's court. I think the one person that I would believe in and trust is what Rahul Dravid said to him, which is not on fitness and performance. It's probably on your age that we are looking to move on. So it's a difficult one, and it's not very nice. It's not very nice when you're told you're not required anymore, and you're just thrown out, and they're not going to sort of have any more time with him. You're not going to spend any more time in the big dressing room. You're not going to spend any more time, working with the superstar players of your country, and that takes some getting over. That takes some time in getting over. So, and it is hard. I tweeted yesterday with myself and Leon McKenzie, great man, one of life's good guys, former professional footballer, boxer. We have a show called After the Lights Go Out on TalkSport, and we got nominated for an award, the S&J Award in England yesterday. And the tweet, the program is about. It's about players' careers after the lights go out, players' careers when they finish, and how hard it is the next step. And some of the stories that we've had in the series so far have been heartbreaking, have been harrowing. But it's about players trying to get themselves in a new position of life, which is moving on from sport or just going down the next rung of the discipline of sport that you're in to sort of still compete, but also try and sort of keep your career going until your days are finished. So that's the challenge for Woodham Saha now on. So 2 guys that looks like their Indian careers are over in Ajinki Rouhani and Cheteshwar Pujara. It's probably, a lot of people will be saying it's probably time coming. It's probably been 8-9 months in the waiting. And I think along with Saha, I think this just gives them time. They've got a couple of test matches against Sri Lanka, not the sort of world powerhouses by any stretch of the imagination. It'll be a good test for India, but one India should win. And then they've got South Africa in, I think, June, July time, something like that. So I think because of that, Indian selectors have decided that they're going to try and make a change. And again, there's the theme between these all three topics that it's careers and good careers coming to an end. You look at rouhani, 82 test matches, just short of 5,000 runs at an average of 38, 1200s, 2550s. Pajara, a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, 95 test matches, 6,700 runs, averaging 40, 1800s, 3250s. They are fantastic numbers. They are great numbers, really, really good numbers. But unfortunately, in the last year or so, their numbers have not been up to the standard that India's middle order needed. And they decided it's time to move on. Adi, again, thanks. Keep asking your questions. I'll try and answer them as open and as honest as I possibly can. Do you think that it's the end of the road for rouhani and Pajara? If Sarfraz and Vihari play well this series, will they keep their chance? Of course they will. They're younger players. They're younger cabs. I think it is the end for rouhani and Pajara. I really do. I think going back to the start, Broad and Anderson, and I'll say it again, rouhani and Pajara are getting left out because their performances haven't been up to the standard. Widman Sahar's been left out because he's a number 2 keeper at 37 when you've got Rishabh Pant, who is number 1 every day of the week when he's fit. Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad are being left out when they are still given a high performance level of what the rest of the team is doing. So there is a coincidence with these topics, but I think there is a level of difference in their performance at this minute in time. Broad and Anderson still warrant a place in the side. Widman Sahar's not in the side; he's a number 2, and rouhani and Pajara, unfortunately, our levels are below the levels that they have been doing for the last year and a bit. I think their place in the side's been questioned for a while now, and I think rightly so. The change was made, and a couple of times I think have saved their skins in the recent past, because I think when Virat Kohli went home from Australia and rouhani took the side and won, even though he wasn't batting very well, he could easily have been left out straight after that. And Pajara the same. So, and I don't think they wanted to leave Pajara out, rouhani out before Pajara out. I think the two of them were going at the same time. So it's a tough one. It's a difficult one when it comes to where they go next. I'd be very surprised if they do come back into the international game. But like the other three, the challenge is set. Do they want to get themselves back on a horse, get themselves some runs, and challenge? That comes down to their desire and their want, and whether they've really struggled over the course of the last year. It might be a relief for them. It might just be a relief that the decision's been made, and we can now move on to something which is a little bit less pressure, still as enjoyable as because they're playing cricket for fantastic sides with good players. But unfortunately, the Goldfish Bowl of international cricket probably is the end of the road for rouhani and Pajara. So that's it. I'm not sure. Can we take some questions? Have we got any more questions, Aritra? Let's see what we've got. Have we got any questions that are coming over the course of that? Arslan, Steve, do you feel that the modern coach can't do too much? Yeah, I think you're right. Too soft, harsh, you're out. If you're an international coach, would you work in the new generation? What approach should a coach take? It's very difficult. It's a great question. But it's a great question, for the simple fact is coaching now is in international cricket. I don't think it's about coaching, even though I think a lot of England's batters could do with some coaching, technical coaching. If you need coaching technically at the top level, you shouldn't be picked. The selector shouldn't be picking you. I think you've got to try and make the player understand what he is, make mistakes he's making, and he is the only one that can rectify it. He's the only one that can think it. And the way I would always work with a player is letting him have his way first up. Try and put him in a position where You're talking to him how you feel as though what mistakes he's making, and then let that go a bit. And then in the end, if that's not working, then you have to be then forceful on your opinion, trying to make the player understand, and basically saying in layman's terms, well, you've had your go, you've tried your way, it's simply not working. Try this way, and if that doesn't work, then the player's either thick, stupid, we shouldn't be anywhere, not good enough to play at the level of cricket that you're coaching them at. I don't think that will ever happen. I think it's about a player and a coach working hand in hand and understanding what their games and strengths and weaknesses are, and then trying to understand that, the little approach between the two. Can you get the player to understand what he's doing wrong, but make him think and understand how to put it right? And if you can do that, you'll be a fantastic coach. And a lot of the good coaches are. When you look at trying to coach individual players, if they've got something fundamentally wrong with their technique, it's about making sure that they understand what potentially is wrong, making sure they can see and feel what is wrong, and then talking to them so they can feel and understand how and when they can put it right. And that's probably the art and the best thing, the beauty about coaching. So good question that. Can you go in there with an iron fist and start pointing, shouting and screaming? Well, Justin Langer did that. And after winning the World T20 and the Ashes, he got kicked out. So I think there's a fine balance between the two. Excuse me. Austin, thanks for your question, Austin. Do you think Rishabh Pant is the world's best under-25 batsman right now? And can he be India's next Test captain when Rohit gives up? Possibly. Excuse me. Possibly, Austin. I think he's getting better cricket sort of brain tactically. I think when I watched him in the, he got 40, what game was that? I'll just go through the book. I think, when did he get, I'm sure he got 4, he got 52. He got 52 off 28 balls in the second ODI the other day. And his first 10, 11 balls, I thought, you know what? Yeah, this is good, because he was meant to work hard. And normally when he's meant to work hard, he just gives it away. Runs down a wicket, crashes it up in the air, and then all of a sudden he's out, and you think, oh, not again, Rishabh Pant. You've got so much talent, but there's things inside that head of yours. Just don't think about the game. But then all of a sudden he just got through. He got a couple of fours away, then he had a one-handed 6, and it was like, well, just if you give yourself some time and you give yourself a go, then you'll catch it up. He got 52 off 28 balls. It was ridiculous. When you look at the number, you think 52 off 28 balls. It was a Rishabh Pant special. It wasn't. He batted beautifully for his first 10 balls, because he had to work hard, because West Indies had bowled well at him. But he got himself through that passage, and I think that's the next step in his development. He is a crackerjack cricketer. He is a fantastic cricketer. And yes, he probably is one of the best cricketers under 25 at the moment. Can he be the next India captain? Quite possibly. I like Suresh Iyer. Can he cement the place on his side to be the next captain? That's a huge ask. But the one thing about Pant is Pant will always play, because of the bat and wicketkeeper section of it. Do you really want a bat, wicketkeeper and captain at the same time? That could be a little bit sort of a mountain to climb for him. But at the end of the day, who knows? He's going on the right path, which is great. Right, next question. They're coming, I think. Which of the England under-19 stars of the future? I thought England did brilliantly in the 19 World Cup. I didn't see a great deal of it, I must admit, because I was in the West Indies as well, but we had it just seemed that every time England were playing against the West Indies, the under-19s were playing. So there was one or two that stood out. The captain looked a very, very good player. As Priest, I think. Priest is a very, very fine young player. He looks as though he's got a game. He's got a little bit of bowling in him as well. Rio, I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names. I do apologise. He looks as though he's got something. They've got a chance. But I look at the system, and I look at the under-19 system, and when I played under-19 cricket, and I don't want to hark back to my day, but a lot of under-19s were playing first-class cricket and playing a high level of first-class cricket. I got pulled out by David Boone. He told me after the first one day I played against Pakistan, I think it was at Harrogate on TV. He rang me up and he just told me my shins were sore. And I was like, what? He went, you're not playing any more of that stuff. Because you couldn't play for your county, you had to play for England 19s. So Booney basically said, you're having 2 weeks off. You're going to be injured. Right. Fair enough. I was like frightened of him. So he told me I wasn't playing, pulled me out to one side and said, right, if your shins are sore, there's no point playing that stuff, waiting for you to play first-class cricket. It's going to be much better for you. And he was right. He was right. At the time, you couldn't play first-class cricket. You had to play for the under-19s, which was lowering the standard of what you were trying to play. And a little special mention to a former teammate of mine, David Sales' son. He bowled beautifully in that final. I thought he bowled very, very well. And if I'll be watching out for him because his dad was not only a fantastic player, but a brilliant bloke, great lad. I played a lot of younger cricket with Jumbo and obviously played a lot of cricket against him. So fingers crossed that young Sales has a decent career, but they've got a good start in the under-19 stuff. And it was great to see them get to the final. Right. I think we've got one more question. John, what's the story with a picture right behind you? Which one do you want? So the ones right behind me, one in this corner is Trafalgar Square, 2005. Self-explanatory. That was about 3/4 of the way through the drunken bus trip, which is always a nice picture to see because you can't remember too much about what happened during that day. And then the other one, obviously, you can see it over the shoulder. That's my favorite. That's my favorite picture of all time because that was the end. That was two best mates sitting having a bottle of beer. He had a cigar. We had a bottle of champagne. And that was the end of my international career. It should have been the end of my career. It was the end of Andrew's career. And the journey of, mentioned before, David Sales, the journey of two under-19 cricketers who met in 1996, who walked off arm in arm at the Oval, having beaten Australia for the final time in an Ashes series. And we both finished on that day. So that was the picture that finished our career. So it's one I'll always cherish. He liked the one that we had in 2005, but I like that one because that was the end of the career. So yeah, very, very fond memories. What else have we got? I think we got one more question. We got a question. I think we got a question on Durham. What's happening at Durham? It's the $1 million question. That one. It's hard. It's a hard one. What's happening with Durham and obviously Yorkshire? My personal opinion is, I don't think you can put the two of them together when it comes to punishment. I think for people who don't understand what's happened here, Durham got punished for breaking financial fair play rules a few years ago. They got relegated from the first division. They got 45 points or 48-point ban, 48-point deduction the year after, and got ban deduction from the shorter format of the cricket. Subsequently, we didn't have any money. 5 of our international players left. Apologies that the internet up here just dropped out. We're still in the middle of this big storm. I'm just finishing on what I said about Durham, and then I'll let you go. And hopefully you've enjoyed our first hat trick with Harmy. We'll get back to you next week with 3 new subjects in Jon Norman. But I think to finish it off, George Dubell has wrote an article from the cricketer to the ECB, or letter to the ECB, and I think by next week, we should know a little bit more about the punishment, what's happened with Yorkshire, with what's happening with Durham. It's not fair on Durham. It still has to be question mark and answers from Yorkshire. But that's up to the ECB, and fingers crossed we'll find out. So if you've got this far, please like, subscribe, leave a review. We've enjoyed bringing you the first Harmy's hat trick, and we'll get back to you next week with 3 new topics. Thanks for joining.